Hi folks, we bought a VMC, a vertical machining center. I am so excited. I cannot believe it. I still have to pinch myself. Just awesome. This was a really long process, but I'm just so excited. So what did we buy? We bought a Haas VM3, their mold machine, loaded out with 5-axis capability and a 5-axis option. So excited. So this was like a year-long process for us, and in many respects, it was overwhelming. It was also really fun. I mean, to be in that position, to be where we are today. I'm so grateful, and I'm excited, but I also wanted to make the right decision. I felt like a lot of pressure to make sure we get the right machine. IMTS was phenomenal. Literally, if you're thinking about this, you have to go to a show. And I had been to East Tech, and it's just nothing compared to IMTS. It was a chance to see all of the machines, but more than that, it was a chance to sort of live in it and talk to people and understand the differences and compare them directly. Because the biggest realization that I made is that it wasn't a machine I was buying a solution for us. So yes, specifications, quality of the actual physical machine, they're important, but I was for too long only thinking about that and not thinking of the bigger picture, which I want to talk about today. So once I realized that, frankly, this was pretty easy. I put a lot of the brand and sexiness and emotion aside, which, hey, that matters too. We'll come back to that. But I just looked at the stats and the statistics and the solution as it relates to us. So I got an Excel file with a bunch of notes and a table, just walk you through the process of how we got to where we are. So we sent in the check for the down payment. I think it should be like 4 or 5 weeks. It's got to ship from California. You guys know the shop a little. What do you think? My plan is to put it here simply because this is a 16,000 pound machine. So it'll be in front of the post right there, which doesn't move, and absent, I don't know, part of my thing is just stay flexible, stay nimble. I don't know what we're gonna do, where we're gonna go, what the future looks like for us. So everything else I can move around myself with a forklift or pallet jack. That machine, that's a lot heavier to move around. So that's my thought. Welcome any input on that. So here she is. It is a beautiful machine. Here's a little video you can see. One of the really unique things about this machine, both within the Haas line and really in general, is it's got T-slots both in the X, normal, and in the Y with precision dowel pin holes. Great for setup. So you can just see here, you get a good idea what that table looks like. I had the first chance to work with one of these machines in Berkeley, California at someone's shop who was, that was a decision factor for me. And if we go actually to the Excel file, so back up here, criteria. Number one, it's got to be a good fit for what we do. So job shop, the YouTube videos, the products that we have made and will continue to grow. And maybe this somehow fits into the training. I don't know about that yet. Social proof. So this is what I was saying. I kept track of it, and there were 10 friends, people that I knew well, that had either this exact machine or Haas machines, recent late models, and their feedback was huge. And it was everything from a really good friend who ran an aerospace division for a household named aerospace company who had not an unlimited budget, but a pretty open checkbook to buy whatever he wanted, bought a VM3, not joking you, loved it. Friends that I've met through Instagram and YouTube communities who have had them or know of them, rock solid machines. And then, things like the factory next door, literally. They've got all different kinds of machines, Mazaks, Haas's, etc. And the guy said to me, he's like, we work on all of our machines. They do most of their in-house maintenance. And he's like, we like working on the Haas. It's really nice. The little things like if I need to fix a hose or a fitting, it's probably inch. Really good things to say. Next thing, relationship and culture. So this might sound weird to you, but it's something that I discovered in working with some of the other manufacturers. It was very transactional. It was very, we'll put on our sales hat to figure out what you want and get you a machine. But the thing that was different to me about Haas, and look, everyone's a salesman here, so I don't mean to act like I've got blinders on. Haas was interested in modern American manufacturing. They loved our story. They had stories like it. They were enthusiastic. They were, if I had to get stuck in the airport with somebody, it was going to be almost anybody I met from the Haas booth. It was nerding out over manufacturing and technology and what's happening, what's changing. It was just fun it was, again, who I wanted to hang out with. And I think that's what you're gonna see a lot when we get into some of the specs and the features, is that's now manifested itself in the feature set, the functionality, the new controller on the Haas machines. Specs and capabilities, obviously huge, actually the easiest one almost to compare. And then price. You guys know I'm a bootstrapper, I'm a value guy. We had started with one Tormach machine and just snowballed that into now having 6 Tormach machines, and we paid cash for this VM3. That's a win to me. I wasn't gonna let price be the total driver, because there were other machines, they were more expensive. I would have bought them if they were the right fit, because at the end of the day, 20 grand or 40 grand is not that much more. You got to buy the right machine, but I'll tell you, the value that Haas brought, look, I don't have the machine yet. We'll see when it gets here. That'll be the real proof, but I have no hesitation this thing's going to be awesome. So machine specs, how they fit our needs. This was kind of the process that I went through, basically the same thing as the criteria above. So a bunch of things about Haas. I'll keep this short because you guys can, you know where I'm going with it. They own the vertical chain, so there's no, the manufacturer's pointing to the controller who's blaming the supplier who's doing this. Haas makes just about everything, and frankly, that's one way they are able to get the costs down. I was talking with somebody who's kind of in the know, and they were showing me an example of a coolant pump filter, how Haas now casts it in-house, and they switch the design to move inputs over, so it's one setup, not 3. And so that's what's funny, is it's not just, there's a difference between getting to a lower price by skimping out, and there's another way through innovation. Availability of service parts, totally different. Haas will let you order stuff direct. You can go to I think it's DIY or parts.haas.com and look through what you may need and try to replace it yourself. Is that a great fit for everybody? No. Is it really important to have good service, whether that's for Haas, their Haas factory outlets, or whether it's Okuma or Mazak or whomever having a good service guy? Huge, because everything breaks at some point, everything mechanical breaks, and the service is so important. But I like the fact that Haas will let you take a stab if you're comfortable, or if it makes sense, or if it's a freaking keyboard button, that's not a big deal. Value we talked about, capability of the machine, we talked about modern manufacturing. I felt like they're in tune with it. The controller. This was the first moment I had where I realized, wait a minute here. I'll just share with you guys. I had thought in having that kind of pipe dream fun moment when you're at IMTS, okay, we could have an Okuma mill, a Samsung lathe, a Brother drill mill, and a Matsuura 5-axis. Those are all phenomenal machines in their respective niches. That doesn't work for me, because like it or not, I can't run every machine here. I've got to have Jared, Noah, maybe more in the future, able to help out. And there absolutely is something to be said for continuity controllers. Not just learning, but mastering that controller, understanding the nuances of it, posting out to it. I'm only buying a mill right now, and maybe that's the only Haas product we'll ever own or end up with, but I like their drill mill is actually supposed to be phenomenal. And I like the idea that the controller's, first of all, really easy to use. There's tons of information and literature out there on it, and the same controller between the lathe, the mill, the drill mill, the 5-axis, if that comes to be. The new controller, there's a video here on it, you can take a look into more, but they have this next-gen controller, and there's some really cool, totally logical things that no one else is doing that I know of, and it just makes sense. Like nowadays, why can't my VMC, doesn't it have an app to talk to me? It does. Dynamic work offset. So this is huge. If you're doing 5-axis work, it used to be the case that you had to have your XYZ 0 at the center of rotation. And I spent some time on a 5-axis Haas about a year ago, actually a VM3 with a trunnion. And it is a bear to get that nailed down. It just is. This now lets you pick any point anywhere on the part and set that at your Z0 for 4th or 5th axis. Huge. And on that note, The 5-axis, that was one of the other game changers for me. I actually had this realization after I'd already agreed to go with the VM3, so it didn't really influence it originally, but the cost and capability to get into 5-axis, which is a complete no-brainer. The tool paths for Fusion are coming very soon, and whether it's for simple parts where you're just eliminating setups or for complex stuff, absolutely had to have it. And now it's great because for now, this is the only machine I can afford. So I've got to have this machine be versatile, but I didn't want to get something so versatile that it wasn't also really good at something. So I could see, it's kind of crazy to think about, but you know, maybe eventually the VM3 stops doing some of the production and job shop work that it will have to do now, and it'll be kind of my R&D play machine. And maybe you've got a drill tap machine that's banging out parts and whatever. Social proof we talked about. Don't call me crazy, but if I had bought a more expensive machine that was more difficult to have service and repair parts done on, I would be all the much more nervous about letting other people use it. It's one of the things I love about my Toolbox. You know, when Noah started this summer, I gave him a half a morning lesson in Fusion, and either that afternoon or the next morning, he made parts on his own. That's huge for me because I can't micromanage. It's not my style. Like, I want people to learn and try, and that's one of the things we do in our training classes is that people are at risk of crashing the machine because that's how you learn. So with the Haas, I just feel like I'm more likely to let Jared, Noah, new people use that machine, own that machine, run that machine. I think that's an important part of our success. Mentioned the fittings. The school that we hire out of that Noah's in right now, they train on a Haas. Haas just came out with through window blast. I'm not sure this is going to work as well as I hope it will, but they put a piece of brake line fitting inside the enclosure door, and you can put an air gun up to it and pull it, and it blows the coolant away from the window, which could be pretty important for filming. It's not as good as the multi-$1,000 Spindex or spinner windows that are pretty cool, and I still always wanted to build one. But just the fact that they're thinking about that, and it's probably not bad for just looking at your part. I'm not sure it's going to work for filming. But that's another factor that came into it is this Haas, it's a beautiful machine, and it's going to be way easier for me to film with, getting cameras set up from different point of views. Again, the Akuma was the other machine we really looked at. I would have figured it out on that machine, but it's just a little bit easier with the Haas. Integration with Autodesk. More to come on that, but I think we're going to see, Autodesk has a great working relation with Haas, and it's interesting to think about where the world could go in terms of the workflow. More on that later. This is amazing. This is just purchasing power. The quote from Okuma for the same Renishaw that I paid, I think a little under $6,000 from Haas for, was 18 grand. That's 12 grand that I can spend on other machine features, on tooling, on fixturing and work holding. There's no secret sauce there. Actually, if somebody knows there's something sneaky going on there, I'd love to hear it. My understanding is that it is the exact same probe. It's Renishaw. It's awesome. And Haas buys a ton of them. Cost of 5-axis I talked about. Ease of film I talked about. We're fortunate to be near the Midwest headquarters, HFO. But that's something you should check on, regardless of what machine you're buying, is the reputation of the HFO really matters. Let's look through that table. So here were all the machines that we sort of maybe looked at. I'll come back to the Haas guys over here. Makino PS95s, supposed to be great machines, heard really good things about them. It's kind of one of those, like, no one's gonna say you shouldn't have bought a Makino, but they didn't even bring one to IMTS. I'm not faulting them for it. It's just funny. Like, 3-axis machines nowadays are pretty boring. They want to be there showing their latest and greatest. But I didn't get to see one, so it just kind of was like, okay, I can't sit around forever. Same thing with the Matsuura. Heard great things. Their VX1000 is their traditional 40x20 3-axis machine. Wasn't there. DMG Mori. I wanted to get into this one, and this machine may end up being great. But it was brand new, and it was coming off of a line that they had made for a couple years that sort of replaced John Grimsmo's. There's a whole backstory to this with what's happening with DMG and then Morisiki. They're now formally one company. John Grimsmo's machine is a Mori, but now they're DMG. Anyway, interesting machine. It's a totally unique style where the table moves in X only, and the head moves in Y, and it's like a slant bed front. So it looks very peculiar, which is fine when you're in it. but I ultimately I can't take that risk of a brand new machine, so I had to rule it out. Mazaks, great machines, great reviews. Not interested in Mazatrol, not interested in what they are for 3-axis. Same thing with Herco. The sales guy kept coming back to conversational, and I was sitting there and I'm like being nice, but I'm like, dude, I'm not interested in conversational. Like, sorry. And you guys saw in the IMTS video, we looked at the Brothers. The Brothers are awesome machines, but they totally aren't for us. And if you start looking through these specifications, you can start to see why. You know, much lower Z travel, much less weight. They're absurdly fast and they're sexy, but my comment to myself was the drill mill, that's our next machine, perhaps. Maybe a lathe, but not the machine for what I need right now. And then I had to joke, I have always loved the Hermle 5-axis machines. Totally not relevant, but just put it in that for fun. So these were the 3 we compared it to. And you know, the Okuma was in the lead for a little while until I started to realize the value of the Haas, and I've started to focus more on the solution overall and not just the piece of iron and the controller alone in isolation. I was watching a video, watching a VMC cut, and it kind of hit me like, I'm getting one of those. I cannot wait. So you guys can look through these specs on your own. I'll walk through quickly. The Haas actually, let's talk about the VM3 as a machine. So it's different than the VF or the VFSSs in that it just has finer pitched ball screws. That's one of the big or only physical differences. So in other words, I think it's like 8, 10, and 12 is the pitch. I don't know what that is per inch, but 8 is the SS, 10 is 8 is the mold, 10 is the regular, 12 is the SS. So that's what controls the rapid speeds in practice and in theory, the resolution or ability for the motor rotation to transfer into smaller linear motion movements. The VM3s have the XY table with slots, which for me is huge on setup. It's great. I'm told they also can be harder to clean out, so it's a trade-off. Has additional Y travel, and this was one of the things that clinched it for me on the VM3 versus the VF4SS. The VF4SS is a really popular machine. A lot of guys have them, a lot of guys love them. I wanted to make sure the machine I got could make spectacular parts and finishes. And so for me, the precision and sort of solid nature of the VM3 meant I'd rather sacrifice some rapid speeds on this machine. And that is one of the slower things. This machine only rapids at 710 710 inches per minute. That's pretty slow for a modern VMC. You know, the VF4SS is 1400 rapids and the Okuma was 15 and change. And the max cutting speed, in other words, how fast you can cut at, I don't feel like this is a limitation, but partly because this is such a big leap from where we've had in the past. But the VM3 can cut at 500, the VF4 at 833, and then the Okuma way faster. The reason I'm okay with that is that if we're growing to the point where that's a problem, we'll get a drill mill or we'll get a dedicated machine. Easy. The Haas machines were able to offer the optional 40 tool changer. I love it. Having more setup with a permanent tool library is less setup hassle, less risk, less question about what to use. Love it. One of the drawbacks I'll throw out is the Okuma and some of the other modern machines offered Big Plus 40 taper tooling. So if you guys are familiar with Tormachs hold it on the straight walled shank and they pull it up so that the ground flat on the tool touches against the spindle. It says two things. It gives you very repeatable Z height on your tool because it's two ground surfaces mating together. It also increases the rigidity because you've got a mated circle around here that's keeping the tool holder from flexing. Regular Cat 40s are actually just the taper being pulled into a taper. So the plus tooling or big, whatever came out, adds that mated surface. And the Okuma had it, the Haas's don't. It's not a gimmick, it does help. It wasn't even close enough to be a reason not to go with the Haas. If it was an option, I would have bought it. Going back though to the specs on the VM3, what's interesting too is it's got additional Y. So it's got additional 6 in the Y, so it gives you 40 by 26. So a lot of guys like the VF4s because you get 10 extra inches of X travel. And the reason the 4 is a popular machine is that when you jump from a VF4 3 to a VF4, it's the only time in the Haas product spectrum where it's only like $3 grand to get an extra 10 inches of travel. Normally it's 10 grand, I think, for another 10 inches. So I think they sell a disproportionate amount of VF4s because it's a cheap upgrade. But the VM3 actually has more table travel area in the Y. I'm not going to make this a big deal. The 50 by 20, frankly, would have been fine. The 26, though, is nice because sometimes you get a big part and you want that additional Y travel. So I'd almost rather have this being slightly more of a square shape than a rectangle. We haven't picked out which fifth axis we're buying, so let's pull that up. I'm debating right now between these two. This is the less expensive, newer, sort of easier answer. It's a smaller platter though, and so it's about a 3-inch cubic area if I recall, but it takes up less room on the machine versus this guy, which is pretty legit. It's their Y, TR200Y, so it sits in the Y and you get double the area. So pretty good, like an 8-inch, actually more than double, 8-inch volumetric area. I'm sure it's more rigid too, given that it's the frame design. But these things are a pain to take on and off. It's a lot of work, they're heavy, it's a risk of damaging the machine and the thing. So I would like, knock on wood, to think about having it live on the machine, at least for most of the time. And if you do have to take it off, this is gonna be smaller and all that much easier to take on and off. So I gotta chew on that. It's an awesome machine. I cannot wait for it. We're busy tooling up for it, looking at tool holders and options and work holding and fixturing, which is exciting. I will share that all with you. This is a natural step, a natural evolution for us. You guys know Tormach sponsors our channel. I was talking to them about this. I even asked their opinion on what to get. And what I like about them is they're happy that it's a sign of our success. So are we gonna keep the Tormach machines? Absolutely. Here's why. First of all, they got us to where we are, and I got to say that 1100 that's now 6 years old, it cranked out this beautiful part just the other day. Interpolation, machining, thread milling, they make great parts. They really do. And for me, as a value and a bootstrapper, the productivity of having multiple machines is great. I can't come close to affording to replace all of these. But the biggest thing which relates to that is don't overbid a job. Most of the work that I do can be done on a Tormach, so don't allocate a $150,000 or $200,000 machine to do the job that a $15,000 or $20,000 machine can do, period. When it comes to training employees or offering our training classes, I love the ease of use of PathPilot, the capability. It's a real machine. It's slower. Yes, it doesn't have the horsepower, the rigidity, but that's fine. For our training classes, which is a program I'm looking to continue to grow. Second operations, that's a no-brainer. Leaving a machine, I'm actually really excited. I've been thinking about leaving one of our 1100s dedicated to the fourth axis work now, especially with Fusion toolpaths coming out soon. Then the other thing is, look, there's always gonna be bigger and better. The guys that buy the Haases or even that Okuma, by the way, is an entry-level Okuma. Like literally, the MB56, which is the step up from the MV560 we were looking at, is like 350 grand. So there's always a machine better, period. So for me, it's always a question of what can you do with the capabilities, the resources, the capital you've got. Love what you do, be happy with what you do, make great parts. A VMC is gonna be more productive, period. We need that for some of our stuff. I need the work envelope for some of our stuff. I'm excited. The only thing I do think I'm going to fall in love with on the Haas, which I wish the Tormach had, is the probing. You guys are going to see that Renishaw probing, pulling in automated probing, work finding, hole locating, mid-routine probing with the new Fusion and HSM probing cam stuff, that's going to be pretty awesome. So it's a longer video than normal. Let me know what questions you have. I thank you guys. Haas was the only manufacturer in like 2005 that had little QuickTime embedded videos on their websites, if anybody remembers that. And I was in my desk job or in my New York City apartment or maybe even in college. And I remember they had like a lathe that did a chess piece and they had a mill that did like a shoe pattern on it. I love those videos. That was like my first introduction to CNC. And I remember you could do a price quote and I would try to do a price quote. Actually, we'll walk through that right now. I had no idea I didn't know what Cat 40 was. I didn't know what any of these options were, but it was just like, I was fascinated by it. I was born to be a machinist. I love this stuff. So to be able to buy one now with confidence and know we're gonna make great parts with it and be part of that, have that be part of our story, and it's awesome. So I'm grateful for where we've been and hopefully where we're going. Thank you guys. Let's price out the Haas. I actually don't even remember now specifically what I paid for it. So build a quote. Okay, it was Cat. Upgraded it. People comment on Haas nickel and diming you on upgrading stuff. Look, the same thing happened with Okuma. There were lots of options. There were lots of options with the brothers. So, you know, I'm not going to defend it. I'm just going to say get over it. Look at the total purchase price and figure out if that makes sense for you, because the counter to saying they nickel and dime you is to say they also let you not buy features you don't want. So I just, you know, I wasn't going to get hung up in that. Okay, these I'm not sure I remember all of. So we definitely bought the auto refiller. We bought the exhaust to keep the machine clean when we film. We bought the lighting. We bought the MQL. This machine has I think I'm right on this, 4 coolant options. It has flood coolant, has through spindle coolant, it has through air blast and MQL. Okay. So we did upgrade the chip auger, and I got to give Haas credit. You know, I'd heard from, I can't remember who it was, but somebody told me buy the better auger, because when you start making this many chips, you need to get them out of there, period. And what was nice is I had picked the larger coolant tank, and the Haas guy said, okay, you don't need that, because with the bigger auger system, you're not going to have as much coolant trapped in there. You'll be fine with the 55. Bought the RAM, or the memory here, dynamic work offsets for 4 and 5 axis. This was included. They had a special. So when we bought the machine, we got a couple things that were included, and then there was some other 10% discount. I think I bought the tool cart, the 55 gallon. Didn't buy pull studs. Didn't buy the extra warranty. Yeah, so this is it, and then, yeah, so that looks right. We paid a little bit less than that, obviously, because there were promotions going on, and then we added to it the 5-axis, which I haven't picked yet, but it's either going to be like 25 or 33 grand or so. So to me, I'm in way under 200 grand for a awesome machine that has 5-axis capability with some pretty awesome technology around that. That is awesome, period. You know, they're just awesome. I've shared everything. I would be repeating myself. So with that, folks, let me know what you want to hear and see. More to come. We'll let you know when we've got updates on the machine coming and all that. Take care. Thank you. See you soon.